Something about race. Right now I'm in this series. I just want to talk about race relations in this country. This is about white racism and the paranoia, and how it won't give you allies. You see, this white racism, it's not that I deny. Sometimes people be like, oh, you. Sometimes some of my friends assume that I am just constantly defending white people. I am not defending white people. I just believe that this power, this thing about racism has no power unless you allow it. And there is some times when it's hard. It really depends on the circumstances. You see, I when I was in middle school, I faced a lot of there was a lot of people that made fun of me, made fun of my appearance, you know, and here's the thing, I was young, I was naive, but because of the way I handled it, the way I reacted to it, I gave them power to it. Now that doesn't justify what they did. What they did was wrong, but many of the times the things that happen, we give them power to allow it. So here's the thing: this paranoia is very, very. It doesn't help because I used this example in another video, and if you are a person of influence, it shouldn't matter to you if you meet somebody who's racist against you. Because chances is, even if we were all the same race, people would still not like each other. Again, because the thing is that it's not a racism issue, but it's a heart issue. And there's a lot of things that we need to work on. And to put our whole energy and our whole focus on racism, to believe that if we get eradicated, then then we're all gonna get along and sing kumbaya. That's just not gonna happen. There's a lot of things that we need to focus, and there is some things that this paranoia, and I believe because of the history and the media and how they teach us in school, that for some reason they make it seem that we need to make sure that this never happens again, because all of a sudden there's going to be concentration camps and minorities are going to be lined up and they're going to be shot or something like that. But you have to really think from a critical, think very critical of this. Number one, whites are mixing themselves in the interrelationships more than they were in the past. Number two, white countries around the whole world are being flooded with immigrants that are not white. Number three, white demographics, they have the lowest birth rates aside from the East Asians, besides the East Asians in the country, in the world. They have the lowest birth rates, which means demographics, they are not going to remain in influence. Number three, countries like in India and China are rising up billionaires, even in Nigeria, which means that the people of wealth are not just white. The thing is that this white paranoia is a false ideology, and is a false. It is a irrational a state of mind, because you believe that you have to fear the white man, even though you live in a neighborhood where, perhaps you live in a neighborhood where you have to kind of fear more your own kind than white people. It is an irrational state of mind that they have instilled in our minds. This white paranoia is not healthy. It brings anxiety, and it only brings hate, envy. There's nothing beneficial of believing in this white paranoia. It's funny how sometimes they kind of accuse conservatives of having this irrational belief that there's MS-13 around my corner and they're going to kill me, even though the chances of a MS-13 of you dying are very slim to nothing. The MS-13, as a matter of fact, prey more on other illegal immigrants inside this country or Hispanics. You know, same thing with Islamic terrorism. Islamic terrorism, a huge deal in the Middle East. It's much bigger in the Middle East and in Africa than it is in the West. Now, when it comes to the West, when it comes to the attacks, they do plan very large attacks that dozens of people die, compared to shooting sprees, which I know a death is a death and unfortunate, and it's unfortunate, but usually in a shooting, it's usually about 15, 17, whereas in a Islamic terrorist attack, they lead to like cases close to 100. But this irrational belief that somehow the same thing that you accuse of conservatives of being irrational belief against Islamic terrorism and against the MS-13 Salvadorian gangs is the same thing that you have when it comes to white people. This irrational belief of white supremacists. And I'm not denying the existence. Of course, I believe that it exists. I just don't think that we should put our time and energy and our focus on that as much as the left wants us to do. Now, here's the thing. We don't have racist law in intent. We do have laws that are somehow trying to help our minorities, but at the end of the day, it actually affects them. It affects us in one way or another. But the thing is that I need you guys to understand this. Usually it takes about a whole generation for people to kind of change their minds. It was in 1965 when they did the Civil Rights Act. It takes about 40 years for people to get used to this new system, because it takes a generation for people to get used to this new system. So 1965, then you have 1975, 1985, 1995. You see, 1995, you can say that's the year. 2005 is the year where you can say that, not that racism was eliminated or eradicated, but you can say that that's the year where people kind of got used to this unity between black and white. They got used to them. They start seeing it more in movies. They start seeing it more in sports arenas. They begin seeing more in that and some neighborhoods that they were moving. So people, little by little, begin to lose their prejudice. Now, is there still prejudice? Yes, and here's the hard pill to swallow. If blacks commit 50% of the crime, not crime, but violent crimes, then there is this kind of stigma in some people that some black folks have this criminal background. And I'm going to tell you this is not just white people. This includes Hispanics and Asians and Middle Easterns, okay? You guys know. I mean, I've heard you, okay? I've heard you guys. The same people, these same Hispanics, these same Asians that vote for Democrats, I've heard you. What you say about the black community and the crime spree. I'm not saying that you're saying that all black people are criminals. Of course I'm not saying that. But you know that it happens. There's stereotypes. This doesn't take the fact that there's plenty of good black people. But you have to understand that that is a reality. And those are the new prejudices that exist. And sometimes prejudices are there for a reason. I don't think that these new prejudices against some people has nothing to do because they still have not get rid of their mindset of we don't want to live together, but it has evolved in this sense that many of them begin to accept this and tolerate this criminal behavior. Okay? Now here's another thing. We have to also check this out. It's not really just it's not the white people's fault always. Tom Bradley was a mayor in LA, praised by many for some reason. But it had one of the most worst crimes rates in the city when he was the mayor in Los Angeles, Tom Bradley. And I believe that when the Rodney King case, he was a mayor as well. And if you look at it in many of these democratic cities, many of the people in power are black. And they have responsibility to take care of their own city. And yet, despite the fact that many of these people are black in power, the black community and their cities reflect another story. But the thing is that this white racism paranoia focuses on the few. You see, you have about 190 million white people in this country. I wouldn't be surprised that there'd be like maybe about 4 million, which is a lot, in this country that are racist. And I wouldn't be surprised. And frankly, I do also believe that sometimes every human being can have in moments of frustration, can blurt out a prejudice thought or an attitude. In times of proof, not just racism, but sexist as well. Anything. Not that they have, but I believe that we shouldn't use that example, of those few millions to paint the whole country as racist. Same thing like in church, you shouldn't use that. But this is a paranoia that it's not just in minorities, but even in white supremacists. You see, white nationalists have this rational belief as well that the Jews control the entire world. And it's all the Jews' fault, and the Jews are privileged, and the Jews are rich, and they're off to get white countries, and they've been doing that since the very century. Look, I'm going to tell you something about Jews. Jews are very, very gifted when it comes to power, okay? And I believe that there's a special I believe that there's a special anointing that God blessed them with that gift. And unfortunately, many Jews do not use that gift for the right things because they control the money, they control politics. But it's not just them, okay? It's many people that do evil in these high places and are in these top elites that are just not Jews. They're others. And because of this, there is this paranoia that believe that Jews are bad. And it exists. And I think this has nothing to do with just the black community or minorities, but this has had to do with humans. Because white folks do that too. White supremacists and white nationalists. They just have to just believe that Jews, oh my gosh, the Jews are running it. Everything is Jews. And I'm not going to deny that there is some Jews that are very influential. But I just don't believe that it's all. You see, because I don't look at it as the problem is a race, but I look at it as a problem. There's humanity, and there's sometimes it's habits and different cultures that leads them to take the wrong. Many times cultures need to own up to the actions, even if you are not one of them. But if you do not call out members of your own kind, of your own group, you're only enabling them instead of helping them out. So I just wanted to share that. Enough with the paranoia. I'm not saying that racism doesn't exist. White racism does exist. And sometimes if white people are more privileged than you, and I mean not because of the skin tone, but because of the power that they have, or because they are born in a wealthy family, or because they have a job position and you're not. I do understand how that's kind of hard, how they can get away with that. But if you are a wealthy black privileged person and all of a sudden, I don't know, just an example, a redneck white person tries to discriminate you, they don't have no power over you. So enough with this paranoia. All right, I just wanted to share that, and you guys have a great day.